Morning, everyone, and welcome to Rosslyn Hill Chapel, a spiritual home for open minds. I'm Gail Brackett, chapel member, and your worship assistant today. Today we explore this month's theme of curiosity with chapel member Andrew Appleyard. If you're watching at home, please join the virtual side aisle at midday. The Zoom link was in the weekly email, and you can find it via the link in the YouTube description. And those of you in the chapel, do join us for refreshments in this side aisle after the service. Our bookcase library is now available every Sunday, where you can borrow books about Unitarianism and other world religions and philosophies too. If you wish to borrow a book, please write your details in the blue book before removing it. At 6 o'clock this evening, we have our regular 30-minute mindfulness with Amanda Dweck. Then at 7 p.m., mantra mindfulness journey with Stefan Hein. You can find information about these and all our activities in your service sheet, and on our website. You can also pick up a copy of our Open Mind newsletter from the steward's table at the back of the chapel. Our collection will take place during the closing music. You will have an opportunity to make a donation in cash or by card. This month, the offering will be shared between the work of the chapel and our good cause for this month, Street Doctors, a charity that works with young people at risk of violence by empowering them with the skills and knowledge to save lives. I will now light the Chalice light candle and peace candle. We light the chalice as a symbol of our free and questioning Unitarian faith. May this flame be as the light of knowledge in our minds and in love in our hearts. I will light one more chalice as a prayer for peace for the people of Israel and the people of Palestine, and in recognition of conflicts that are currently taking place around the world.
Whoever you are and wherever you are on life's journey, there is a place for you here in our spiritual community. Whatever your race, gender, sexuality, class, age, physical and mental capability, we welcome you in the spirit of love. We come together each Sunday and we are curious to get to know each other in this spiritual community. So please turn to someone near you and say your name and welcome them to the chapel this morning. Listen out for the music, which will be the signal that the time for speaking has ended. Thank you, everyone. You can follow on those conversations after the service over coffee and some cake, hopefully. So now let's join together and sing our first hymn, which is 208, which is called When a Heart is in a Holy Place. As it is our custom, please listen for the full introduction, and then, as you're able, please rise, and if not, please seat. Thank you. Thank you. I don't think there are any young children here today, but if there were, I would probably say the following. This is a classic book about a young girl who has some adventures in another land. She's called Alice. Her sister starts reading her a story, I think by the banks of the river near Oxford. She gets a bit bored. So she sees in the distance a white rabbit, a peculiar white rabbit who is obsessed by the fact that he's always late, maybe for an important date. The white rabbit encourages Alice to follow him down a hole, which she does. She falls down this hole, which takes a while. She looks at everything down the hole, and then she lands with a big thump into a different world. The room that she's landed in has doors all around, and she sort of opens each door and has a good look, and her curiosity is piqued. And there's one door which is very small, so she opens it, and behind it is a garden, a beautiful garden, but she can't get through it because she's much too tall. On the table, there's a potion which says, "Drink me." So she does, and she shrinks in size. So she's able to go through the door, and she's very, very small now. And when she goes through, she finds a cake which says, "Eat me." So she decides to do exactly the same thing, and she eats it, and she becomes very, very tall and large. And she's entering into this different world where she starts to meet a whole bunch of wonderful creatures and animals who she's never seen before, and they are very, very different. So she meets a dormouse, a dodo, a badger, all who give her rhymes which she can't understand, but she's curious about what they mean. And eventually, she meets a duchess who's holding a baby. She's asked to hold the baby because the duchess doesn't want to hold the baby for some reason. And the duchess is off to play croquet with the Queen of Hearts. So Alice is curious about the Queen and the croquet as well. But along the way, she meets a cat, which is quite unusual because it becomes invisible after it's had a conversation with you, and it's full of riddles as well in terms of what it says to you. But they're quite meaningful. And then she bumps into a couple of characters whose watches have stopped and time has stood still, and so they're always having a tea party. And that's the Mad Hatter and the March Hare, his friend the March Hare. So they're constantly talking in riddles, and Alice is finding it hard to understand, but it's quite good fun because she is she's having nice cake and tea with people who, again, she hasn't met in her world. And eventually, through one way or another, she comes across the King of Hearts and the Queen of Hearts. The Queen of Hearts is very domineering and is always wanting to cut people's heads off. And she's always quite keen on croquet, and she hates losing as well. And what eventually happens is she sort of loses the game, and she wants to know also who has stolen her jam tarts. And so there is a court session where the Mad Hatter and the March Hare are called to give evidence. It's complete nonsense because they don't know what the time of day it is. And Alice is called to give evidence as well. And her curiosity is piqued again. And as she's about to give evidence and to save herself from getting her head chopped off, she wakes up and it was all a dream. The end. With apologies to Lewis Carroll because I've abbreviated it quite dramatically. Although there are no children here today, it is our custom to sing them out. So if we can imagine, as Alice would, the children, we'll sing them out. invite you into a time of prayer and meditation. We come together in fellowship each Sunday with hearts full of joy and full of concern. If you're holding someone in your heart this morning, I invite you to say their name aloud in the coming moments of stillness, so that we may also hold them in our prayers. Spirit of life and love, God of our hearts, we give thanks for those who bring us joy and pray for the safekeeping of those whom we hold in concern. For all those names, spoken and unspoken, may they be surrounded by the loving kindness we offer them today. Blessed be. Amen. Gail will now do our first reading, which is The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost.
You'll have to bear with me, I've got hay fever, so I'm a bit croaky, sorry. This is The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry, I could not travel both, and be one traveller. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that the passing there had worn them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves, no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less travelled by, and that has made all the difference.
Thank you, Gail. Could we rise again for our second hymn, which is 83, Just As Long As I Have Breath. John will do the introduction, and then if we could rise after that. Thank you. Gail will now read what is sometimes called the Tale of the Curious Oysters, but here it's called The Walrus and the Carpenter, also by Lewis Carroll.
The Walrus and the Carpenter. The sun was shining on the sea, shining with all his might. He did his very best to make the billows smooth and bright. And this was odd, because it was the middle of the night. The moon was shining sulkily because she thought the sun had got no business to be there after the day was done. "It's very rude of him," she said, "to come and spoil the fun." The sea was wet as wet could be. The sands were dry as dry. You could not see a cloud because no cloud was in the sky. No birds were flying overhead. There were no birds to fly. The Walrus and the Carpenter were walking close at hand. They wept like anything to see such quantities of sand. If this were only cleared away, they said, it would be grand. If 7 maids with 7 mops swept it for half a year, do you suppose, the Walrus said, that they could get it clear? I doubt it, said the Carpenter, and shed a bitter tear. Oh, oysters, come and walk with us, the Walrus did beseech. A pleasant walk, a pleasant talk, along the briny beach. We cannot do with more than 4 to give a hand to each. The eldest oyster looked at him, but never a word he said. The eldest oyster winked his eye and shook his heavy head, meaning to say he did not choose to leave the oyster bed. But 4 young oysters hurried up, all eager for the treat. Their coats were brushed, their faces washed, their shoes were clean and neat, and this was odd because, you know, they hadn't any feet. 4 other oysters followed them, and yet another 4, and thick and fast they came at last, and more and more and more, all hopping through the frothy waves and scrambling to the shore. The Walrus and the Carpenter walked on a mile or so, and then they rested on a rock, conveniently low, and all the little oysters stood and waited in a row. The time has come, the Walrus said, to talk of many things, of shoes and ships and sealing wax, of cabbages and kings, and why the sea is boiling hot, and whether pigs have wings. But wait a bit, the oysters cried, before we have our chat, for some of us are out of breath, and all of us are fat. No hurry, said the Carpenter. They thanked him much for that. A loaf of bread, the Walrus said, is what we chiefly need. Pepper and vinegar, besides, are very good indeed. Now, if you're ready, oysters dear, we can begin to feed. But not on us, the oysters cried, turning a little blue. After such kindness, that would be a dismal thing to do. The night is fine, the Walrus said. Do you admire the view? It was so kind of you to come, and you are very nice. The Carpenter said nothing but, cut us another slice. I wish you were not quite so deaf. I've had to ask you twice. It seems a shame, the Walrus said, to play them such a trick, after we've brought them out so far and made them trot so quick. The Carpenter said nothing but, the butter's spread too thick. I weep for you, the Walrus said. I deeply sympathize. With sobs and tears, he sorted out those of the largest size, holding his pocket handkerchief before his streaming eyes. Oh, oysters, said the Carpenter, you've had a pleasant run. Shall we be trotting home again? But answer came there none. And this was scarcely odd, because they'd eaten every one.
Let us enter a time of prayer, after which we will have music for reflection, at which time you may come forward to light a silent candle of joy or concern. Spirit of life and love, God of our hearts, as we seek connection with someone, something beyond ourselves, we remain humbled by the awesome complexity of the universe, the miracle of creation, and the grace of the ultimate Spirit. In this time of prayer, let us give thanks for our community and our many gifts of naming our blessings quietly to ourselves in these moments of stillness. Recognizing our woes and faults, let us sit quietly with those parts of ourselves which cause us discomfort, with a spirit of gentle understanding and forgiveness. Spirit of the divine self, we open up our hearts to listen to the wisdom of the still small voice that may speak in these quiet moments. God of our hearts, let this small act of worship send a ripple of loving kindness from this place to our loved ones, our acquaintances, and the wider world. O God, may we become the embodiment of divine love. Blessed be. Amen. Road Not Taken has been a favourite poem of mine because I was always curious about what might be along the road. Where did it lead to? What if the writer had taken the other road? What was down there? I wanted to know, and my imagination was fueled by the poem. On the opening page of our website, we state that we encourage each person to seek the truth and meaning for themselves, to be curious. Curiosity is a fundamental aspect of human nature. It is the desire to explore, learn, and understand the world around us. It is the driving force behind scientific discovery, artistic creativity, and personal growth. It leads to asking questions, seeking new experiences, challenging statements. So important in an era of controlled social media output and country bias in certain news outputs. Take the plot of Alice in Wonderland, which I regurgitated earlier. A girl tumbles down a rabbit hole into another world with a different time and societal assumptions and strange characters. A wonderland. In this other world, Alice meets the same kindness and cruelty as is found in real life, but this is disguised in a way as to allow a critique on adult behavior. Her journey down the hole, following the rabbit, who is always worried he is late, speaks to the curiosity which is inherent in the human condition, perhaps sending reassurance that there could be other ways to live, that there may be another world so close but so different that holds a mirror to the assumptions that we live by now. Whilst walking the dog on one of the few sunny mornings we have had this summer, I looked up at the sky to see the wonderful moon. My imagination was drawn to build a whole new world on another planet. Could there be another planet out there that could sustain human life and society alongside Earth? If this is the case, then much imagination would be needed alongside scientific expertise. Just this week, the discovery of a reservoir 20 miles beneath the surface of Mars shows that David Bowie's curiosity was worth pursuing. In a broader sense, curiosity can be seen as the motivation to fill gaps in knowledge and understanding, leading to a pursuit of knowledge in various forms, whether through research, reading, travel, or engaging in new activities. It is an essential trait that fuels innovation and helps both individuals and societies progress. Research has shown that exploring your curiosity can be good for you. When we are learning, if we are curious about a subject, the facts become easier to remember. A recent study showed that heightened curiosity meant that people were more willing to wait to find out a solution to a puzzle. You are curious to find the solution, and you'll be patient to find it. Other studies show that with greater curiosity brings greater openness to hearing others' opinions, the essence of productive disagreements. It is a vital and vibrant aspect of human nature. It opens doors to new possibilities and enables us to adapt with compassion in an ever-changing world. By understanding curiosity, we can foster a culture of continuous discovery and improvement, both individually and collectively. The power of imaginations in stories is that they tell us the truth of who we are, what we want, and where we want to go, at the same time containing reflections on the human condition and the deepest themes of life itself. The spiritual life is irrigated by the power of human imagination, which is a way of life that remains a test, awake to possibility, alive to the absurd. A life that I have found as it goes on is less about finding an answer and more about how to live with the questions. A life that is curiouser and curiouser. Could we please stand for our final hymn, which is 167, There Is a Place I Call My Own. Standing. Spirit of life, God of our hearts, may our time together encourage us and give us the strength to face whatever we may face in the coming week, so that we may become a blessing to the world. Blessed be and amen. Please be seated and the collection will now be taken. Thank you also to Gail for the reading and Roger for being the steward today. Thank you all for your presence and treasure. Please join us in the side aisle if you can for some tea and coffee. Thanks very much.